There are gods people worshipped for comfort. And then there were gods people feared to look at directly. Sekhmet was one of them. In Egypt, she was called the Powerful One, the goddess of plague, war, bloodshed, fire. But that's only the surface, because Sekhmet wasn't worshipped simply as a destroyer. She represented something far more unsettling, the idea that destruction itself could be sacred. That sometimes what is burning in your life is not punishment, it's purification. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why one of the most feared goddesses in history may actually represent a force human beings still struggle to understand today. Welcome to Magen and Moon, where mythology, symbols, hidden history, and the deeper layers beneath ancient stories are explored through a more cinematic lens. If you're drawn to forgotten goddesses, sacred symbols, archetypes, and the meanings hidden beneath mythology, subscribe and join us here, because many of these stories were never really just stories. Sekhmet emerged from one of the oldest civilizations in human history. Ancient Egypt did not see the universe as random. Everything was balance. Creation and destruction. Flood and drought. Life and death. And Sekhmet existed on the edge of that balance. She was depicted as a woman with the head of a lioness. Not a domestic cat, but a predator, a hunter, a force of overwhelming power. The desert itself was associated with her: heat, sunlight, violence, disease. But also protection. This is what makes Sekhmet fascinating. She was feared and invoked for healing. Priests prayed to her to stop plagues she herself was believed to unleash. Which sounds contradictory until you realize something ancient cultures understood very well. The thing that destroys you may also be the thing that transforms you. According to Egyptian mythology, humanity began turning against the divine order, and the sun god Ra decided humanity needed to be punished. So he sent Sekhmet, not as a warning, not as a messenger, as devastation itself. And the stories describe her descending upon humanity with such fury that the slaughter became unstoppable. The image is horrifying, a goddess drunk on destruction, a force beyond human control. But then something strange happens. Ra becomes afraid of what he unleashed, because Sekhmet cannot stop. So the gods pour thousands of jars of beer, dyed red like blood, across the land. Sekhmet drinks it, believing it is blood. And eventually, she falls asleep. When she awakens, the destruction ends. Now, on the surface, this sounds like a myth about wrath, but symbolically, it may be something deeper. Sekhmet represents what happens when force loses balance, when rage becomes consuming, when purification becomes annihilation. And this is where this story becomes psychologically powerful, because ancient myths often externalized human realities. Sekhmet is not just out there, she represents something within people too. The destructive force that emerges when pain, rage, betrayal, or imbalance remain unchecked long enough. It would be easy to dismiss Sekhmet as merely an ancient war goddess, but people are still drawn to her today for a reason. Because Sekhmet embodies a truth many people secretly feel. Sometimes transformation does not arrive gently. Sometimes life removes things violently. A relationship collapses. A version of yourself burns away. An illusion breaks. A comfortable identity dies. And ancient cultures often viewed this kind of destruction differently than modern culture does. Today, people are taught to avoid discomfort at all costs. But many older traditions believed destruction could reveal truth. Fire clears fields. Storms reshape landscapes. Old structures collapse so something new can emerge. Sekhmet became a symbol of that terrifying process, not meaningless destruction, transformative destruction. And this is likely why her imagery still resonates psychologically, even thousands of years later. Because most people, at some point in life, encounter a moment where who they were can no longer survive. The lioness itself matters deeply here. Unlike many modern symbolic depictions of femininity, Sekhmet was not associated with softness. She represented ferocity, boundaries, survival, protection, power. The lioness hunts, defends, protects her territory. And ancient cultures understood feminine power in ways modern audiences sometimes forget. Not merely nurturing, but dangerous when necessary. This is part of what makes Sekhmet feel so intense even now. She disrupts the idea that sacred feminine energy must always appear gentle. Instead, Sekhmet asks a more uncomfortable question. What if protection sometimes requires destruction? Over time, Sekhmet became associated not only with war, but with healing temples and ritual medicine, which creates one of the most fascinating paradoxes in mythology. The goddess of plague became a goddess of healing. And symbolically, that paradox may reveal the entire point. The wound and the healing are often connected. Transformation frequently begins where comfort ends. And many ancient myths repeatedly return to this idea that confronting darkness is not always evil. Sometimes it is necessary. This is why so many ancient stories involve underworld journeys, death and rebirth, deserts, storms, fire. Not because ancient people were obsessed with suffering, but because they understood transformation rarely feels pleasant while it is happening. And maybe that is why Sekhmet still lingers in the imagination thousands of years later. Not because people want destruction, but because they recognize the feeling of standing inside change powerful enough to erase who they once were. Ancient myths survive when they describe emotional realities human beings continue experiencing, and Sekhmet may represent one of the oldest and most unsettling truths of all. That sometimes, the fire is not there to destroy you, it is there to reveal what cannot survive, and what remains afterward may be more real than what existed before. If you enjoyed this exploration into Sekhmet and the deeper symbolism hidden within ancient mythology, like this video and subscribe to Magen and Moon for more videos on forgotten goddesses, sacred symbols, mythology, archetypes, and the unseen meanings woven through history. And if there's another figure, symbol, or myth you'd like explored next, leave it in the comments below. Until next time, pay attention to the symbols that continue returning. They usually survive for a reason.